I'm gonna turn it over and introduce Jason Cook. Jason comes to us. He has over 20 years experience in navigating the intersection between manufacturing and supply chain. Jason now leads all aspects of Halliburton's newest and most capital-intensive manufacturing facility. It's a grassroots batch chemical reaction plant in Saudi Arabia. So please join me in welcoming Jason Cook.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it didn't sound so bad when it was written. It sounds kind of embarrassing now. Let me start out first by lowering expectations a little bit and figure out which direction this goes. All right. We're a really big company, Halliburton. We're very small in the chemical space. So you're going to see my most recent project and some of the solutions that we're looking at, but by no means do I think we've solved all the problems, and collectively in here, there's a heck of a lot more knowledge than I have. So please interrupt at any time. Please, I'm always open to advice and happy to share the journey. So first of all, I'll do a little bit of what is Halliburton, but I promise I'll get off the sales pitch a little quickly. We've been in business for over 100 years. We're a global energy company. Predominantly, we focus on oil field. We have 13 business lines, and we span the gamut from initial exploration through drilling the well, through production, through enhanced recovery, end of life. We have some other business lines that kind of drift away from that a little bit. We're pretty big in refinery water treatment. Part of that's because it's a lot of the same technologies, asset protection, things like that. But the reason I put this up there and why it's important to the journey I'm going to talk about is some of our business lines have a really common overlapping chemistry. Our drilling fluids, which is Baroid, our multi-chem, which is production chemicals, a producing well, cementing, production enhancement, which is STEM. They all use chemistries. They all use very common chemistries, a lot of surfactants, a lot of corrosion inhibition, things like that. So we had this brilliant idea. A few years ago, we were going to vertically integrate. And we do, on the discrete manufacturing side of things, we do have a lot of manufacturing. We're really big into drill bits, really sophisticated downhole tools, heavy equipment, things like that. But we wanted to vertically integrate into chemicals. And so our strategy was this. We were going to acquire a company, which we did. We acquired Athlon, and they have a facility real close to here. We were going to integrate that company, learn what we could, and we were going to build a grassroots facility in Saudi Arabia. And the way we're going to start up that facility is take all the awesome talent from here and ship it over there to start up the plant. So it seemed like a great idea, and we started down that journey. And then about halfway through construction, COVID hit. And that is where we started to encounter our skills gap, or we started to see we were going to have a major skills gap coming. And that's the journey that we've been on since then, because of all the dynamics that we experience over here, we never got that ability to draw on the talent from the US to bring over. Yet we're starting up a pretty sophisticated batch kind of operation. It's a surfactants plant, so ethylene oxide, propylene oxide, things that we take very seriously. Halliburton, though, does know people. Right now, we're at about 45,000. We are a service company, though, which means our employee base kind of goes with oil and gas, and oil and gas does this. So since I've been with Halliburton, I've seen it swing 3 times now, once as low as 28 and as high as 47, and we're creeping back up to 47 now. So the demand for talented workers, it's incredible swings, both in hiring and in training and in dealing with the cultures and everything that goes with it. It's not to say we have all the solutions. I'm just pointing out we do deal with a lot of people. For us, these are not the only drivers, and they repeat some of the things that you guys have talked about here. As I mentioned, it's a very cyclical industry. We try not to swing our manufacturing plants like we swing on the oil field side of things, but it does have an impact. We are seeing maybe this is COVID, but I think it was a trend all along. Much stronger demand for worker flexibility. People that want, whether it's working from home, whether it's working on a different schedule to accommodate life changes, whether it's going from shift to days to shift, those kind of things. We're seeing a lot more just expectation that they can do it. This was mentioned earlier, the know-how of employees, I'm seeing a big change. I think a slide earlier this morning mentioned mechanical aptitude. Whether it's changing or not, we're definitely hiring people that are coming in with a different level of mechanical aptitude. And it does have a really big impact because our training programs were not really built for that. On top of that, my experience staffing a plant of 70 to 80 folks in Saudi, there's just a different culture around it. I like to in my spare time, tinker with cars. I have a 63 Galaxy right now I'm pretending to restore. And when people over there ask me, hey, what do you do in your spare time? We were just talking. I said, yeah, I like to rebuild car engines and work on stuff like that. And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, don't you have mechanics for that? You know, I might as well be saying, I like to clean bathrooms, you know? That's what I do as my hobby. There's not that same upbringing that they have. So we have to do a lot more to teach folks. And there are definitely changes in expectations of how people learn. I know this from my hobby. I can go Google just about anything. I don't need to have, you know, the background in it. But people that are coming to the work are employees. They expect to have a lot more information at their fingertips. They expect to have information in different formats. They expect that because we're a big company, we're going to have all the same kind of tools that they have now in high school all the way up, and a constantly changing list of tools that they have available. So those are the expectations we're dealing with. This is Halliburton at a global level, you know, what we're doing to try to address it. First is a very blended approach to delivery. It started out, and I'm sure we were all this way, it started out with classrooms. That's how you did training, classroom training. That was it. And then I think, honestly, for nefarious reasons, it migrated, you know, we started with these iLearns or online learning, really, because you didn't have to do as many classroom training. You didn't have to fly people in, that kind of thing. We tend to get overloaded now with those electronic trainings. But there are a lot of other platforms that we're looking at, and I'll go to that slide in a second, where we're trying to offer multiple routes to training. We're also spending a lot of time trying to upskill our workforce. We've got a digital academy that people can apply to. It's available for all employees, but it's to try to train people to make better use of the tools that we have. So if it's Power BI or ClickView or we have a whole suite of tools for around continuous improvement and CI teams and things like that they can use, but offering training so people take advantage of that. And then I know others have mentioned it earlier, we've also been on advanced reality, virtual reality, mixed reality kind of journey. For us, it would seem like a really obvious carrot. We have remote operations in environments around the world. The idea that you could deliver training and content to someone, it's a very enticing technology. It's not there yet for us, and we're really trying hard. Part of it's not the technology. A lot of the technologies work really well. It's the connectivity. And I think that's going to get solved in the next few years. There are a couple of really big mesh global satellite networks going up now, and we're paying close attention to that and participating, which should make those technologies come along better. This next slide, I'm going to apologize in advance. It's busy. It's got a lot on it. But this is kind of me trying to get my brain around all the different tools that we have and what this means in terms of closing the skills gap. The way I've been trying to think about it is things that I can focus on that are enabling technologies or platforms, because I don't know what tool is going to be the next great tool in the plant. I do know any of these conferences that we go to in manufacturing, there are a lot of solutions out there, and there are a lot of really cool solutions out there. And so I'm less interested in figuring out what's going to be the next great one, and I'm more interested in figuring out how do I make sure we're ready to easily take advantage of it. So some of those are enabling, like procedure management. If you're going to adopt a really cool app that allows you to have procedures on the tablets out in the unit or on the shop floor, well, you're probably not going to be able to adopt that technology if your procedures are still scattered in 100 places or on 3 different legacy apps, things like that. So trying to get control of those sort of things. Same with engineering document management. I love this. There was a video out a while back. You know, the concept of the maintenance worker. They run out into whether it's the shop floor or in the unit, and they're pulling a motor, and it doesn't line up right, and they click on their Google glasses, and oh look, it's off. This is off 5 degrees. Here's what I do. That's cool. We're not there yet at all, but you're never going to get there if all your drawings, all your PNIDs, all your equipment files are not in convenient platforms. And so our platform in Saudi right now is ProArch. There's a lot of them out there. I think the key is just making sure that data always stays as good data so that you're ready for applications. And then the last thing I'll talk about is enabling the IT structure. So I think whether you're a big company or a little company, being able to adopt software quickly can be a real big challenge. And so we discovered several years ago in our discrete manufacturing plants, we would buy like these ginormous CNC machines, you know, several $1 million investments. And of course, you want that plugged in so the manufacturer can log in anytime, they can check how it's running, they can do software updates. And our IT department would say, hold on, they can't connect to our network. No way. That needs to be a project and an army of IT people and everything else. And we started to realize there's a lot of cloud-based solutions out there now that are easy to adopt, but we'll never use if we have to go through our IT department every single time. So we did invest. For us, you don't need to, I don't understand the drawing, but operations technology network for us, it's a way we sat with our IT department and said, look, if we do the firewalling this way with these servers, can we have a lot more flexibility to adopt tools in the plant, tools that we connect with on the cloud, but there's a firewall so that our IT doesn't worry that they're going to worm their way in and destroy things, or somehow someone could come in and connect to our DCS or anything like that. So investing in that is what enables the solutions for us. And this is a variety of things. On-demand employee aptitude. This is, there's some great third-party software out there. We have an in-house platform we're getting better at using, but the idea is allowing employees to have more and more visibility to their learning progression, to their competencies, to where they're at on there, so that hopefully they're also having an active role in wanting to get ahead. Mobile devices. So maybe this is embarrassing to say, but and everyone here is way ahead of us, but getting Wi-Fi in the plants. I mean, that's not something that we were ready to do. We have Wi-Fi, of course, in the buildings and everything else. But actually in the operating unit and actually on the shop floor is critical, just because we're seeing a lot of better technologies starting to come, but you can't do it if you don't have Wi-Fi. Flexible simulation software. My next slide is sort of not meant to be a plug for the sponsors, and I'll show what we're doing in Saudi. But there are a lot of solutions in this space, and I know some of you recently were touring facilities looking at them. I think this sort of immersive learning is something that the people we hire are demanding. They want to have more than sort of classroom training, more than sort of the boring sit in front of your computer and just listen to someone speak. We're trying to deliver a number of environments to the employees so that they have opportunities to learn. And then we can pick and choose which one's best. Any questions before I go on from this slide? Yeah.
What's the training offer for your internal employees? Does Halliburton ever have like the smaller companies that might seek out some of the trainings or technical trainings, maybe post other companies to come in?
It depends on the country. So we certainly do for customers. We will sometimes invite customers in, and that's a frequent thing. It depends on the country. I don't see it as much here in the U.S. In other countries, we definitely do as part of sort of the goodwill and everything else. I don't think there's anything that Halliburton's doing that's magic in terms of those systems. I mean, the Hal TV is kind of cool. It's a platform that allows you, anyone in the company that wants to upload video, it's a platform to upload video. Well, that seems simple. It's actually really powerful because if I want to shoot a quick video, like to train someone on something, historically, there was no way I could distribute that in our IT network. And so this is just an enabling platform. But yeah, I didn't have a good answer for your question. I'm sorry. Any others? All right. Well, let me move on. All right. So the challenge we had in Saudi, still have in Saudi, is how do I have skilled operators? It's oxide reactions, which keeps me up at night. It's a workforce that during COVID, we were the only game in town. Now there are some really mega projects going in around us. There's an olefins plant and all the derivative plants within it just going in next door, a mega complex. There's a mega gas plant going in next door. So there's a lot of now sort of people trying to recruit our talent. And I know that I can't keep everyone, so I need tools so that I can have an influx of new employees and train them. I also, the way that this plant is set up is a batch. We're constantly changing. We constantly have new recipes, and we might make a product, and then a year goes by before you make it again, and that's a challenge. Also, I really don't like the model of, well, how do you train? Well, you follow this person around, and when they've said that you know what you're doing, then they'll sign you off, and now you're on your own. Well, one, I don't like that. Two, I don't have those kind of same experienced people. We do hire a lot of people that have worked at the Chevron joint venture next door. They've worked at Sabic or they've worked at Sadara. But even in those locations, they were still kind of getting a lot of Western support from experienced people. So we've got a very hungry workforce. They really want technology. They really want technology. And I don't think that's going to be any different for younger workers here. And so we need better ways to deliver that. We also wanted a way to do it safely. And so we landed on this platform. What I really like about it is, I was showing it to my kids the other day, and they think it's the most underwhelming thing in the world because it just is like obvious to them. Of course, you would navigate through, and of course, you would be able to click on things and turn things, and of course, you would get feedback on if you were doing it in the right order. It just seems really obvious to anyone that's maybe like a week younger than me. I don't know. So we're doing it. We're not there yet. I will tell you where we're at right now. Is it's a neat addition, but that's not where we want it to be. Where we want it to be is we want it to be part of MOC. Where we want it to be is something that has just the same weight as our standard operating procedures, so that anything that gets changed in the plant, this gets changed also, then it's safe for me. Otherwise, I think it'll die quickly. I mean, that sounds terrible to say, but I think these kinds of things are what get our employees excited. They are hungry for new things, and maybe you ask, why in Saudi? Because we actually have a number of these kind of initiatives we're doing in that new plant. Why would I ever do it in a facility with such little experience? It's because they're open to change. If you tell them that it's the best technology out there or that it's something new, they'll pivot tomorrow and say, okay, they'll take it on. If I go to my plant in Bayport and I say, hey, you know, the way you've been doing that for the last 30 years, next week we're going to try something new. It's totally new, but we're going to try that. Yeah, I'll get a different reaction. So no, our secret strategy is to try stuff like this and get that plant up and running, and then we're going to bring back a lot of these lessons to the U.S. Any questions on this or anything I've shown so far? Yeah.
We had employee-driven competency.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So the way we've always done competencies in the past is we tell you what you need to get trained on. And there is still some of that, like to go from operator 1 to operator 2 to be an oxide operator, you know, those kind of progressions. There's bare minimums. But we also have this flood of other learning platforms. In the perfect world, I also want the employee involved in that process of where do they have strengths and weaknesses. So someone earlier mentioned having their employees we call them individual development plans or career paths, things like that. We really want them to have ownership of. Now, some won't. Some will just do the minimum. And honestly, that's okay because we need a lot of those people too. But I'm digressing a little bit, but I'm terrible at hiring. I mean, earlier, I used to think I was a really great interviewer, and every person that I landed on, like they were going to be a rock star. I've kind of learned that, you know, it's a third of everyone I hire is going to maybe not work out. A third's going to be okay. And a third maybe, hopefully, is a rock star. So I'm much more interested in finding people that have the aptitude or just are hungry to learn than have the skills. And those are the people that if we have good platforms so they can map their journey, they're going to do really well. And so that's what we mean is trying to get more of these tools in front of the employee and let them have access to drive where they're at. Did that answer your question? Thanks. Anything else? Yeah.
What about the Hall TV? So who puts the videos on? What's the content? Where's it viewed?
So it's, I'm not going to be able to give you the best answer, but the key is that, first of all, you can only see it if you're logged into Halliburton network. So it is internal. But any employee with just a simple form, there's not like a long process, can get access to it, and any employee then can post videos. So it's used from everything from our big corporate kind of training things where we want to put an hour video out there to my plant that maybe, you know, shift A wants to do a quick video about something, whether it's the actual job itself or they're celebrating or whatever, and they need to post it. Shockingly, it's really, our IT architecture did not allow for posting these big file size videos. And so they created Hal TV, and it allows anybody to post. There's moderators, but it's really kind of any content. It can be from safety related to training to some of our more polished whatever presentations. Things expire after a period of time, but then that way you can post a video, whether it's from your phone or anything else, you can quickly upload it and you can send the link to anybody and say, here, look at it here. So I've got like lots of videos I've posted of construction of our plant, which are they're all huge file size videos that I never could have sent to anybody if I wasn't able to do it. Did that answer your question?
Is it on TVs like this, or do you gotta go searching?
No, it's on your computer. On your laptop. And we do contests too, where we'll say everybody around the world, you know, we're doing a contest, submit your best safety video or submit your best video bragging about X, you know, thing that you want to brag about. And I thought, actually Linetail did this first a number of years ago, because I remember it. I thought it was going to flop, you know, everybody around the world send a video about, I don't remember what we were doing. It was some safety day related thing. And I was shocked by the number of insanely skilled people with their phones that could do really good videos. And so, yeah, getting employees involved that way.
On the, back to this question, on the employee-driven competencies, are they aligned with the employee's goals? And then what if they seek out competencies that are not a part of their job?
No, that's a really good question. So we do check-ins. We don't do annual performance reviews anymore, but we do check-ins, and every manager's required to do check-ins at least quarterly. And that's the whole purpose of that, is that they're supposed to be closely aligned with the employee on what the employee is doing next. We also do succession planning, which depending on the business line that you're in could be quarterly, but it might be as much as annual. When it's done poorly, it's just sort of this thing that all the managers and above get together and we talk about each employee and who could do what next and everything. I like to brag about it because I think employees want to know that they're being talked about and we're talking about what training. So ideally, when the check-in is occurring, the manager's asking, well, what do you want to do next? And then when I'm participating in succession planning, I'm asking the managers, what do they need to get to the next level? Because I'm holding the managers accountable to get them to the next level. Does that help? Yeah.
So, you mentioned tablets and scanners and all that. How mature is Halliburton's use of those? And what are some of maybe the less obvious challenges with implementing stuff like that?
Yeah.
Just start to kind of roll that.
Tablets and scanners and how good we are at using them. It's definitely a journey. We're getting a lot better. The scanners and handhelds in our discrete manufacturing, we've got a lot of experience now, and I'm just starting to introduce them into the chemical plant. And the Wi-Fi was the biggest hurdle there. But they're coming with, those handheld scanners are coming with so much more information now on them that's accessible to the employee. I mean, our employees, I'm trying to drive this culture here. We've got it in Saudi now. They get angry when they make a mistake and it's because they didn't have the information that they feel we should have given them. And so we make a lot of products that have crazy names or long numbers for names or things like that. And the scanners really enable them to have a lot of information at their fingertips. That requires you to be properly using, for us, SAP or things like that. So there's a lot of back-end things that you have to have in place. And that's the piece we're getting better and better at. Scanners work really well for that. Tablets, I'm kind of interested in. We're gonna take a stab, I think, next year at the intrinsically safe, or the little ruggedized tablets in our operating area, because we do a lot of the kind of manufacturing we do is very procedure driven, and we're getting a lot better at that. It's a very humbling experience. This goes to the safety moment that was early, just a minute ago, on the descriptions. When you take all your procedures from one side of the world and you try to implement them on another side of the world. Just a couple of weeks ago, we made a bad batch of a product. They cooked it way too long. And it's because there's a step in there and it says slowly add. This is going to sound cliche, but I'm not making this up. It says slowly add 3 bags of X. And so the operator over his entire night shift added those 3 bags and really slowly and cooked the product about 8 hours more than it should have. And so it's those kind of learnings that we want to have the procedures visible also so that we're editing the procedures and we're starting to find those pieces. I also, that's not me, that's my plant manager. Okay, so this was my attempt at trying to think of just like what things are on the horizon that I think about. Flexible adaptive learning programs, it's kind of a theme, but I do think we've got to get better and better at how do we pull all these tools together. There's a lot of learning opportunities out there. Increased ability for employees to manage their own journey. I do think that's not going to go away. Employees, your employees that want to move up, they want to learn and they want the access to it. I do think at some point in the future, mixed reality tools are going to be like the cool commercials and provide those features, particularly for our maintenance folks or for all the non-routine activities. You know, something goes wrong and you're shutting down or starting up your RO unit that you hardly ever touch, or some kind of activity like that. Real-time knowledge capture, I didn't talk about. It is a feature of that Vuvio that we just mentioned, but it's looking for ways to capture what the operators know when they're out in the field. So there is so much information that is, I wouldn't do it. Nobody's going to bother to go all the way back the next time they're in the control room, say, hey, we need to update this procedure to add this note, and then go through all the MOC to do that. But the fact that to turn that valve, you really need to use this specific shorter wrench, or to pull this pump, took us 8 hours to figure this out, but we really need to pull that bolt and hook the winch right here. And if there's easy ways to capture that information, or hey, when you add this product and we're running in this regime, it tends to foam, so watch out over here. If you've got easy ways for operators to capture that, I think they will. And for me, that's how I'd like us to start to tap into that knowledge base. So a lot of these applications, not just Vuvio, but there's a lot of others out there, are starting to tap into that, but you need it out in the operating unit. You can't wait for the operator or the machine shop worker or whatever else to, right before shift change, to think that they're going to sit down and pound out like a nice thesis for you and go update a procedure. And the last one is kind of cool. I heard this at the manufacturing conference in Chicago a couple weeks ago. Two big aerospace manufacturing companies. No, one was consumer goods, one was aerospace. They're experimenting with contingent workforce of people that normally would just retire out. So our model of employing people is you work full time and then some magic date stops and then you're not working. And in an effort to hire people, they realize they have a lot of workers that they want to retire, but they still want to work 1 day a week or 3 days a week, or they want to work for a few months and then not. And I thought, okay, sure, you're talking about people who come back and maybe they're a picker or maybe they're just working in the warehouse or whatever. And no, they were serious. They're the people still operating their equipment. They have to keep current on their training, on their certifications, but all the same jobs they did before they left. And there's apps that are trying to tap into this kind of workforce to keep track of that. And so you have, think of any given plant that you guys have, how many retired workers you have that are still somewhat active. And for some of the locations, it's a big number of people, and the apps help manage that, help keep track of their certifications, and let them say, I'm available to work 2 days a week. And so you need extra maintenance, or you need someone to help with training, or you need someone to work on a shift. That's what they're tapping into. Anyway, that's my view of things. Yeah.
Used to keep your operations staff sharp. So one question is that optional or mandatory? And then also, how do you work that in around the shift schedule to give them the time to get that training? Is it done on an OT basis, or is it while they're on shift and maybe downtime in the unit, or how does that work?
Oh, really good. Right now, it's optional. It's soon going to be mandatory. Because I've said, look, if we don't use this as part of our MOC, as part of something that's integral to, just like you print out the procedure, and this is actually our shift supervisors are driving this. They want it to be before they run any batch that it keeps track of who's trained. But the reason they like it is because also they don't want to mess anything up. And these are the kind of tools that anyone can sit down for a few minutes and they can practice walking through it. And when you have a plant that has a lot of different valves, and some of them you use sometimes, some of them you don't, everything else, they like that aspect. The time piece is important. I am constantly, because our ops superintendent and above have quite a bit more experience. They're kind of my age, and I'm constantly reminding them to staff the shift to allow for more of this kind of time. But there's some mundane things too, like we designed the control room. We didn't really design enough spaces for operators to sit and do those kind of things. So we got to think through to make it convenient also. If the operators come in but there's not a simple space for them to do it. It's a challenge. So that's kind of our hurdle right now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. And one other question. What does your onboarding training for your ops, your shift look like? How long is it?
Our on-the-board training right now is on-the-job training. So we have, because we're small, we tend to not hire people straight out of school. We tend to hire people with industry experience because we don't have the luxury of hiring enough right now that we can send a team of like 12 through or whatever. We do have training that we go through, and then as they're on the job, they have to go through the different certifications before they're allowed to do something on their own. So it should take 2 years to get up to where even if you are coming from industry experience, you're allowed to do our most hazardous, which is oxide reactions. We have to look for ways to accelerate that in the Middle East because we just I'm finding folks just don't have that level of training just across the board. So what we emphasize instead, which is more of a Halliburton thing, is stop work authority. How that applies in the chemical plant, in my mind, is more importantly, I need to really stress upon them and for them to have the culture to know when they don't know something and to know that it's okay to pause. And so then that's what becomes most important for us is we have to be careful not to push them, but just like we can say, hey, you need to exercise stop work authority anytime you see something that's wrong or you don't know. There's a flip side of that to training them to see when something's wrong or they don't know. And so we're leaning very heavy on building that culture where they expect to be trained and exercising stop work authority and going exceptionally slow.
So I have one more question, and I'll leave you alone. What does the regulatory authority in Saudi Arabia look like compared to, say, OSHA in the States? Is it more stringent, less stringent? What's your take on that?
So everything we do, we're a U.S. company, so everything that we do, we're going to follow the same standards here. So I don't have PSM or RMPA over there, but everything that we do at the plant there is to the same standards that we are over here. Most of the ministries in the Middle East, and this is true, honestly, in our other manufacturing in other countries too, they try to emulate either Europe or the U.S. So they adopt a lot of the same standards, or at least a lot of the same concepts, but there's lots of hit or miss, lots of confusion, lots of loopholes. The bigger risk is this: for non-national plants around us, people we may hire from, or people like their buddy works over here, that kind of thing, they can really exploit the system. So there are a lot of plants around me that can make things a lot cheaper than I can, but they can really push the boundaries too. And so how do I make sure that our operators and managers and stuff know that that's not us? Yeah.
You talked about the stop work authority, which is great for most circumstances, but there are also a lot of there are also a lot of circumstances where doing nothing while you're waiting on instructions is more dangerous, and you've got to do something. And that's where, just last week, we had an electrical upset. We're hanging on by the skin of our teeth. We're very, very focused on don't start anything. Don't start anything without talking to us, because we're trying to keep everything balanced. And throughout the day, you had announcements. Make sure you're reviewing your emergency shutdown procedures. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the VUVIO type of training to help people on a regular basis review the procedures that they don't touch, but once every 5 years. And so many of the people on the shift have had zero practical experience. So it's not the day-to-day operations, it's the critical procedures that when the balloon goes up, you can't afford to sit and wait for somebody to come. You must do something. I think that's where it's critically important to provide that kind of training.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We have an acrolein blending facility in West Texas, and you know what acrolein is. It's not a friendly. It's an incredibly useful chemical, but it's definitely not a friendly chemical. And that facility keeps me up at night for that same reason. All they do is take ISOs of acrolein and they transfer acrolein to skids and to smaller vessels. It's all they do. It's a pretty simple facility. And thankfully, nothing's ever gone wrong there. But also, nothing's ever gone wrong there. You know, how do you train people for those scenarios? And I think about that all the time in Saudi also. How do we train for the non-routine things? We have a brand new plant. Everything's working. Everything's working. You know, it's not the training on the day-to-day. It's how they're going to respond in the emergencies. And so any software, Vuvia or anything else, it can kind of expose those. We're also trying to tap into local community colleges, similar, not this nice, similar, you know, into their learnings. But it is definitely your highest risk, I think, is the non-routine operations. I don't have a perfect solution for you. It's just a good observation.
I can remember I took my first solo flight on my 16th birthday. And as a kid, my first solo flight around I was going around the second leg of the pattern when it occurred to me, I have to put this bird down. And there's nobody who's going to help. I'll put it down or I won't.
Yeah.
And that is, sometimes that is what the operator's facing. They're up in the air and nobody else is going to help them land bird.
Well, I do think what we can do is it's easier for us in a batch plant than it is in a continuous plant. But what we do is we press on drills and really press hard on drills because when you're in the heat of everything, they want to perform. We're trying to ramp up production. They want to win. They want to succeed. And we're constantly having to say, no, we need to stop. I want to see scheduled that you're doing drills on this day, that you're carving out time to do these things. Because otherwise, they'll just go until they don't go. I think that's it for me. I want to thank everybody for your time. Any other questions? I don't know how I did. I'm over. All right. Thank you.